Kohli is back this morning. How are you, Dr. Kohli?
I'm doing great, Claudia. How are you doing?
I'm doing well. I wanted to talk to you about new research out there. It's out of Stanford about aging in bursts. Can you break this down for us and what it means?
Oh, this is fascinating. So in the medical community, we always thought aging was linear, right? We age a little bit more every single day. But what this research is telling us is that we may be actually aging in bursts, with sort of two big bursts, one occurring in the mid-40s around the age of 44, and one occurring around the age of 60. Now, for every individual person, it might vary a little bit.
Sure.
But what this tells us, it's not a little bit older every day. It's kind of the same, and then you have this threshold, and then you get a big bit older. And they did this study based on looking at blood tests, looking at proteins and how they change in our body, essentially determining how our cells and our DNA is aging.
Why does this not surprise me? But I've always kind of thought that it suddenly just, boom, it hits and it hits, right? So not that much surprise, but it's so interesting to hear it from an actual doctor. How important, though, are genetics versus lifestyle and diet to aging?
Well, this is what's really fascinating, too, that the majority of this is actually lifestyle. So genetics only comprises about 25% of our aging and our longevity. Now, if you have a parent or grandparent who lived for a very long time, you're more likely to as well, because you have those longevity genes, and a lot of the genes for aging kind of cluster along with the genes for disease, so that we know that we age the same way. But 75% of this is our lifestyle. And I often tell people that our genes are kind of our hardware, and the way that the genes are turned on or expressed is the software. So that's called epigenetics. So if we're not exercising, we're smoking, we're drinking alcohol, we're doing all the bad things, we actually turn our genes on in a way that makes them age faster. We change our DNA so that it represents itself a little bit differently.
And that makes sense. If we're going to smoke, if we're going to drink, obviously those are all bad things. And look, my great-grandmother lived to 104. I'm going to be around for a while, y'all. No, I'm kidding. Does menopause play a role in this? And what's the age, more or less, for a woman to start looking out for menopause?
Menopause is huge. So menopause changes our estrogen and our progesterone levels, because those are the hormones that the ovaries make. And in fact, there's even a phenomena that we like to call menopause, where the testosterone levels start to go down as related to age as well. And a lot of people think this means that you need to replace them. And I'm really not a fan of hormone replacement therapy for men or for women. But most of us, the average age of menopause is around the mid-50s. We'll start to see some of those age-related changes occurring in the mid-50s. Now, for some people, again, it might happen earlier in the 40s, and for some people, it might happen later. In general, once you have menopause, unless it's early, I'm not a fan of replacing those hormones, because your body's not really designed to see those hormones after the age of menopause. And if you give them back, it can actually cause problems. But when you look at these kind of bursts of aging that we have, and you look at the genes, you see that in our mid-40s, the way that we metabolize alcohol, the way that we metabolize caffeine, and the way that we metabolize cholesterol starts to change. And then if you look in the 60s, we start to have problems with our kidneys, and those types of proteins get turned on. So knowing kind of what happens, knowing that menopause accelerates it, can really help you get control of how to reverse it.
Absolutely. And we're not going to be young forever. At some point, all of that bad stuff's going to start to really, really hurt us. Are there ways we can lengthen our life that have been proven medically?
Yes, there are many ways. And this is where I want us to think in our head, Claudia, not just of living longer, but living better and living healthier.
Yes.
So we want our brains to be healthier. We want our organs to be healthier. And unfortunately, our brains and our heart are two of the organs that age the most. They age the most kind of prematurely. So we really have to think about how to reverse those. So that's doing a lot of the things we've talked about before on the show, watching our diet, our exercise, our lifestyle, but really sort of focusing it. So in your 40s, when those cholesterol genes are starting to misbehave, you think about aggressively treating cholesterol. In your 60s, when it's more the kidney problems, you really want to get on top of that blood pressure, because that can damage the kidney filters. And we know that as we get older, our blood vessels get stiffer. Just like our skin gets wrinkles, our blood vessels get stiffer. So really focusing on that to reverse it. And through all of those years, exercise, because it builds muscle mass and it keeps our muscle and our skin healthy. And we know that in both of those clusters, muscle and skin genes are also what starts to give way, as most of us will tell you. We start to have our wrinkles in our 40s, and they kind of, muscle mass goes away in our 60s. So really focusing on the targeted things that are starting to give way. But in general, following a healthy lifestyle is the way that we can keep our brain and our heart and our other organs young for longer.
Yes, and we definitely need to do that. Well, make sure to email email us your questions for Dr. Kohli. Just send your message to MyCOCO at 9news.com and put Kohli in the subject line.